Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is not only the best movie in the saga, but it also is the best piece of Star Wars content ever made. The movie contains everything that makes Star Wars what it is known for today. Episode 3 features an emotional story with a fantastic cast of characters. We have multiple lightsaber fights. All of them rank high up there on the all-time list of duels within the franchise. We explore multiple settings across the galaxy, especially during this awesome time period, the Clone Wars. We see some awesome space combat in that opening scene, which in my opinion is the greatest opening in any Star Wars movie. I love the battle scenes on Utapau and Kashyyyk. The entire soundtrack is a masterpiece thanks to John Williams as always. Episode 3 is the reason why I am a fan of prequels being made for any franchise. There's just something about seeing how a franchise got to where it started, especially the characters. Seeing Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader was really cool. Seeing how Palpatine finessed everyone in the galaxy was also cool. Everything about this movie was awesome. So today, I just want to kick back and relax and talk about why I love Revenge of the Sith. I remember going to the theaters to see Episode 3 back in 2005. I was only 8 years old at the time. My mom took me to go see the movie, and somehow she fell asleep through most of it. And to this day, I still can't believe that I wasn't scarred for life after watching Anakin nearly burn to death at the end of the movie. It was just such a cool experience to watch that film from start to finish. And I truly think I would have enjoyed it just as much if I was an adult at that time. Because it's funny, we hear George Lucas and other people always say that Star Wars is for kids, and then I instantly think of Anakin being burned with just one limb left, Mace Windu screaming after his hand was cut off, and Palpatine turning into a wrinkly old man in front of our eyes with his own Force lightning. But Revenge of the Sith is truly a spectacle. Episode 3 is filled with many memorable moments, quotes, and memes that are still talked about and brought up today. The movie is filled with stellar action sequences right from the opening crawl. The movie is never boring. Yes, there are a few slow parts, but the pacing just feels good in this movie. The movie slows down when it needs to. My biggest issue, looking back at episodes 1 and 2, is that I felt like the first 3/4 of those movies were kind of boring. But the last 30 to 45 minutes were awesome. I like watching episode 2, but episode 1 specifically is just very difficult for me to watch until Darth Maul appears for the fight. The world building in Revenge of the Sith is never talked about enough in my opinion. Star Wars movies always start with the quote, "A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away." Key word here is galaxy. Episode 3 takes us to a bunch of planets. It takes us throughout the galaxy. We actually get a small taste of the Clone Wars in this film. We see multiple battles going on between the clones and the droids. We see a handful of other planets during the Order 66 moment. A lot of the Star Wars projects that get made today are always made with a smaller scope. We don't visit many places, and we don't see other kinds of aliens and creatures. And it's just disappointing to see because there's more than just humans in this galaxy. And for example, in Revenge of the Sith, the Battle of Kashyyyk, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but when that battle starts on the beach, wow, that scene goes down as one of the greatest battles, I think, in Star Wars history. One of the things that made Star Wars popular was lightsabers. One of the coolest looking weapons ever made in the history of media, to be honest. The lightsaber duels in the original trilogy were okay, but they were really taken to a new level later on in the prequels, specifically in Episode 3. To this day, nothing comes close to the lightsaber duels between Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda taking on Sidious. The amount of effort and creativity given to those two battles is insane. George Lucas and his crew did a wonderful job. It's amazing to see just how creative these people are, and we saw that time and time again in this movie. Back when the movie came out on DVD, I enjoyed watching the bonus content. Even as a young kid, I was very interested in seeing how they created scenes, did the makeup for the characters, and how they were using the CGI and all that computer stuff. A lot of people make fun of the heavy use of CGI in the prequels, but I cut them a lot of slack because, well, it's the early 2000s, and obviously that technology is nothing like what we have today. But yes, it's glaringly noticeable at times. And let's stay on the subject of critiques here for a moment. If I had to pick on anything in this movie, it would come down to the dialogue and acting between Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman. Even the GOAT, George Lucas, has his flaws. The slow, romantic kind of scenes between Anakin and Padme, in my opinion, were cringy at times. The dialogue wasn't that great, and the chemistry between Natalie and Hayden just always felt a bit awkward. And to be fair, they were both young back then, but it's noticeable. But for me, this stuff doesn't ruin the movie. We aren't there for the lovey-dovey stuff when it comes to Star Wars, even though their relationship specifically is what leads to disaster in the galaxy. I don't know of many movies that can successfully pull off a character's transition from hero to villain like Episode 3 did with Anakin. Heck, even Palpatine's transformation into Darth Sidious was pretty cool. The physical transition between both of them is cool. You know, Vader gets into the suit, and Sidious, you know, gets all wrinkly and monstrous looking and creepy. But at the same time, Anakin's journey to the Vader suit is gruesome, and Palpatine's transformation to Sidious is not only gruesome, but just downright creepy. This movie hits many emotional notes. As fun as the movie is to watch, it's almost too painful to do so even after watching it so many times. It's truly heartbreaking to watch Anakin say goodbye to Obi-Wan right before he heads out to find General Grievous, because this is the last time that Obi-Wan technically talks to Anakin. I still find myself yelling at Anakin to not cut off Mace Windu's hand just as he's about to strike down Sidious. Then there's the end of Obi-Wan's duel with Anakin, where he says, "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." That shit stung. We don't get many gut-wrenching moments like this in Star Wars anymore, and it's really, I think, something that a lot of the current-day content misses. I think Episode 3 did a great job of rounding out the story of the prequels and the saga as a whole. I feel like the adventure we went on in all three films culminated nicely in Episode 3. It was a good story. I don't think there is really anything controversial in the storytelling. To me, this is a perfect example of what Star Wars should be. A movie with lovable characters, emotional moments, epic battles, action-packed scenes, lightsabers, cool ships, an epic soundtrack, and a story that is both entertaining and logical. Star Wars doesn't need to sweep all the award shows out there, and fans today, especially the older ones like me, need to look back at this film and remember that. Star Wars should be held to high standards, of course, but let's remember that the good content can still move past cringy, lovey-dovey dialogue and acting like in the few cases we saw in Episode 3. Well, that's just my thoughts on Revenge of the Sith. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really wanted to just take a step back. I know the Star Wars community is, really topsy-turvy, filled with negativity and arguments and stuff today. So I just wanted to kick back and relax and let's remember a good movie and pay homage to it and just remember the good old days of Star Wars. So let me know your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith. Go check out the rest of the content on the channel and heck, maybe consider subscribing. You can also find my content on podcasting platforms. Just Google Analyze This Podcast. You can also find me on X and TikTok, X at AnalyzeThis_YT, and TikTok at AnalyzeThis54_YT. Thanks for watching and take care.